The hardest thing in football isn't building a good team, guys. It's teaching a good team how to win before they've ever won anything. When you get that close, when you get really, really close, the fear starts to whisper louder than the belief. And that's where we are. That's where Arsenal are now. This is an elite team, yo. We are physically dominant. We're tactically intelligent, and we're capable of beating absolutely anyone when we're at our best. We've proven that. But the final step, the one that separates contenders from champions, isn't tactical. It's psychological, people. What's up? Hello and welcome back to the channel. That's right. Welcome back to the Cup Chasers for another video. Here we are discussing Mikel Arteta, the mentality, and how we can get it over the line. How do we bridge the gap from contenders to champions? So hit the like button here for this live discussion. Smash up the hype button if you got any of those points left. Of course, happy Monday. And subscribe to the channel if you are new. Of course, thanks for being here. And I want to know what you're thinking about old Super Mick down in the comment section below. So let's get this straight right out of the rip. I don't think Arsenal are failing. We're not broken. We're definitely not underachieving. I think we are exactly where we want to be. Bin Arteta and Odegaard ASAP. Bronx Gunner, I disagree completely, man. I disagree completely. We are exactly where elite teams go right before they become champions. Okay? We're like right here, you know? We're like right there. This is what we have to go through sometimes. And one of the biggest reasons I think we shouldn't that I'm not Arteta out. I'm definitely not Arteta out is because it would do way more harm than good. The players absolutely run through brick walls for him. They do. And he's got a unity going. And that might be, even though this isn't, what you want your manager's best quality to be, but the fact that he has the team together and playing for him might be one of his best qualities as our manager. But like I say, we're exactly where we want to be. We're in the title race. We're going deep in Europe, of course. We do have control in a whole bunch of games. But this could be a dangerous place because now, after 3 second-place finishes, the expectation is there. It wasn't there in 22-23 when we were blitzkrieging teams and we were just enjoying it, vibes and all that, because we were absolutely destroying teams. There wasn't any expectation, but now that the expectation is here, the belief, it becomes so much heavy because the expectation comes before experience. We don't have that experience of winning. We don't have that experience of lifting the Premier League, not this group anyway, and so it all comes back to mentality. I've been screaming this since Anfield, since game 3 of the season. I've been talking about it, and that's the only thing we don't have. That's the only thing we haven't shown. 22-23, we've shown that we can absolutely decimate teams if we just put them under. And then 23-24, we kind of found our handbrake a little bit and tried to find the happy medium. And then last season, we were putting it all together and injuries absolutely devastated us because we didn't have the squad. But now, in this season, we fixed all that. We know we can blitz teams a la Inter, a la Bayern Munich, etc. Leeds even at home a while back. We know we can blitz teams, right? But it's the mentality that we don't have. That's the mentality we haven't proven. We haven't gotten over the line yet. That's the one thing we're missing. But mentality doesn't start with like slogans and words and stuff. It doesn't come from, the win one for the Gipper speech or the fact that the crowd is getting behind it. Mentality starts at the top, people, all the way at the top and flows downward. And who's sitting at the top? It's the manager. It comes from the manager to the players and to the fans. The mentality comes from the manager, and that gets into the players, and the fans see that. And then we reciprocate. And it becomes a cycle, yes? So what does that mean? It means that the most important mentality in the whole group, in all of Arsenal Football Club right now, it's not the squad. It's not Declan Rice. It's not Martin Odegaard or Victor Gyökeres. It's Mikel Arteta. It's on the manager. Now, I've been heavily critical, especially after the Anfield game and some of the games where we didn't go for the throat. Even after when we played Liverpool at home, I've said the same thing. It was all about cowardice. It was all about fear. And fear at this level, it doesn't look like panic. It's caution. It's the handbrake. That's what fear looks like these days. It looks like we're protecting the structure instead of really trying to decide games. We're waiting instead of acting, hoping something happens. It's game management. It's game management instead of trying to destroy teams. And that fear doesn't come from like thinking we're bad or weak or whatever. It comes from the ownership. It comes from Mikel Arteta, of course. When you build something, you cannot say he hasn't built something from since we were finishing 8th, 2 5th place finishes. Yeah, that's where we started. But he's building it up. And when you build something like that, the fear comes with not wanting to lose it. You don't want to be the one that blows it all. And the closer you get to absolute glory, Premier League, Champions League, all the dreamland stuff, the louder that voice becomes in the back of your head. Don't mess this up. Don't F this up. Because we have to admit, we are one of the most reactionary fan bases. We are one of the most nervy kind of fan bases, especially online. I personally, obviously, have not been able to make it over to the Emirates Stadium and be a part of the crowd at any point. Hopefully, at some point, bucket list stuff, I'll be able to do that. But we are very reactionary. And the closer we get with that expectation is coming, the louder that voice in Mikel Arteta's ear. Don't mess it up. Don't F this up. And so that's why the contrast in this last game with Manchester United was very illuminating. But also it's not like we haven't seen it before, right? Man United, they didn't play fearlessly because suddenly they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's freedom. It was the freedom. And why? It's because Michael Carrick has no pressure. He's the interim. They haven't promised him anything. And so there's freedom from consequence. Man United are not worried about any legacy this season. Carrick's not worried about his legacy as a manager at Manchester United. There's no long-term judgment from what this might do. He's just trying to get them through to the next, the next thing. There's no personal rebuild for him. And so when he feels free, he's got them playing free, the players feel free. And that's what everyone in the Man United fan base has been begging for, right? All this stuff about Amorim has Bruno Fernandes in jail, has free Kobe Mainoo, all this stuff. And that is exactly what Michael Carrick has done. And that's why, he hasn't needed to demand bravery. He just lets it happen because they're free. And that's why Bruno Fernandes has looked so good. Because he's been free to move about the pitch, do whatever he wants. Because so too is Kobe Mainoo and Casemiro. So the new formation, the new attitude and approach has just given them the freedom, right? And that's what we don't have. Here's the most important thing that we do miss, that people miss. Yes, we do have freedom sometimes. You know why? We've seen it. Actually, yeah, we've seen it. We've seen the freedom in the Champions League. But why is that? Why in Italy we don't look nervous at all? We played fast. We took risks. We attacked the moments. I think that Odegaard is suffering from the same thing that Mikel is. He's like, it's like I said, mentality starts at the top. And so for me, Mikel Arteta thinks that Martin Odegaard is his best leader of our press. Mikel Arteta has built, you have to admit, he has built us into an elite pressing team. And I think personally, he thinks that's our best attribute. I think Mikel Arteta thinks our press is the best attribute that we have. Because at the beginning of every game, what is our strategy off the ball? No matter who we're telling to activate, who is the activation or the trigger of the press, our goal is to make the goalkeeper hit it long and win a second ball. Yes? And so Odegaard, over the seasons, under Arteta has been bred to prioritize this kind of positioning and prioritize his work off of the ball. And so that caution is kind of seeped in to him with the ball as well. It's a game management cautious approach that Arteta's mentality has just bred into the team. And I think that's something that's hindered Odegaard. But does he need to be this Kevin De Bruyne player? I don't think Odegaard needs to be some legendary, epic, got 97 assists and crazy kind of player. I think he needs to get back to being comfortable. I think we're not comfortable. The reason I don't, the reason I don't like Bruno Fernandes is because he epitomizes an ungrateful player. He epitomizes the player who is so good when he wants to be, when he puts his ego aside and doesn't, and decides he's going to do what he's best at for the team instead of arguing with the referee. Bruno Fernandes is amazing. I mean, I think that Martin Odegaard is definitely better than average. I think also he can improve, but I think this is kind of the crux of the discussion right now is it's all about the mentality. Because in Europe, we don't necessarily look anxious because we're going at teams. We were all over Inter. And why is that? Why was that? Because in Champions League, the assumption is that they're not going to sit back. There's not going to be a low block. There's no demand for us to just hold the ball and break them down for 90 minutes. It's like there's a permission to react and not just to, impose our will on the game. If you look at it, we play with a lot more freedom because the game gives us permission, because we're not expecting to be, have the ball for 85% versus Inter Milan, versus Bayern Munich, versus some of these better teams in the Champions League who feel they can express themselves versus anyone, the same way we should, the same way we do in the Champions League. But why is that harder in the Premier League? Where's the disconnect? It's not the problem that we can't do it. That's not our problem in the Premier League. The problem is when the players feel allowed to. In Europe, the freedom that we're missing or not necessarily exhibiting in the Premier League is it's natural. It's just like go out there and play because it's more of a game. Both teams trying to go for it and win. In the Premier League, there's an expectation now. There's an expectation and it's suffocating. In the Premier League, the expectation we have sometimes suffocates that freedom. And now Arsenal, they're not reacting. We're not trying to react in the Premier League. We're trying to control. They're expected to control. Even me, I'm not saying, I'm not a part of this. We expect it to dominate. And Arteta wants us to win without chaos. He wants us to win without giving anything going the other way ever. Total domination. That's the plan. And that changes everything to the approach from Champions League to Premier League. But also, we have to be honest with ourselves about the fan base, myself included. I don't want to blame everybody, but we need to understand, the environment. We definitely need to understand the environment. I'm not saying that impatience is toxic. Obviously, I'm impatient. Obviously, we've waited so long, to believe in this team, to win again, to win the Premier League. And so the belief has become so heavy. It becomes like so heavy to carry because every time we miss a chance, my head goes. Every time we drop a point, it's like, oh no, the Sharks are circling. Oh no, that this is Villa all over again. This is West Ham all over again, and the players are feeling that. I really wish the players, weren't so connected with the social medias and stuff like that. And didn't have it all in the back of their mind. They feel it. They don't fear necessarily that they're going to lose the game. They fear that we're going to turn on them. There are moments in the game where the groans or the awkward silences, the tension when Zubamendi passes it to Mbumo and he just tucks it away. The expectation that we have is ringing way, way louder than the criticism. It just is, you know. And at the end of the day, this is where managing, and not necessarily being a head coach, this is where the manager's job really, really begins. The belief and expectations are aligned now that this team is ready. The manager isn't hold us back, in my opinion. He's done his part to get us this far. He has done his part to get us this far. But I wouldn't say holding us back necessarily. I think that's the whole point of this video, is like, I think he's with us trying to figure out, I think he's in the same boat as we are, trying to figure out how to bridge the gap, right? I think maybe sometimes Arteta has the handbrake on, and so yeah, that might be considered holding us back if you want to say it that way. But I think he's in the same boat. It's not like he's being stubborn. You know, I think he's trying to figure it out. Like I say, how to bridge the gap. That's the whole point of the video. But he is. We can be cunning and dangerous. We smashed Inter. We smashed Bayern. We even beat Paris last season in a fantastic performance. What is the main thread, the commonality in all of those performances? Go back and actually look at those highlights. We pressed the hell out of all of them. And why are we an elite pressing team? Is because when Arteta lets us have the freedom to press, we demolish teams. He just doesn't want to do it in the Premier League because the expectation of, the pressure of not losing is weighing on him. It's really, really weighing on him, and that's where his job begins. It's this is where at this point in our title race, he's got to pick this up. It's not necessarily the tactics. He has them. We have the structure. This is not that. He knows when, the press is fine. The triggers of the press are fine. Like we got that kind of down. Arteta's job right now is to kind of be the intermediary between us, the fans, and the players. And he's got to take it all on himself. He's got to take the pressure, the noise, the expectation, the Odegaard's out, the Arteta's out. He's got to take all of the people trying to be him, myself included. I'm not. There's a short right here on this channel talking about what I would do if I were the coach, Charles says, mate, sometimes to choosing to get beat, play below your levels matter. Look at Bayern choosing to lose at Augsburg versus Dortmund or Hoffenheim. I mean, I agree that when you're not willing to go for it and play down to maybe go for the draw or whatever. Yeah, it's very, very disheartening. It's very, very, it gets in the mentality of the players. And if you're not perfect, that's why Arteta's, sometimes Arteta's game management approach is working. A lot of the times it's working, but in the moments where it matters, we have to be absolutely perfect. It has to be perfection. And I think when we try to ride that line, it doesn't always work. And when we fall really far below it, we freak out, myself included. Judging him from December of 2019 to now, it's a ton of disappointing results from then to now, January 26th. I've had enough of the Arteta saga. I hear it, but it's kind of one of those things where, have you ever heard of Napoleon Hill's book called Think and Grow Rich? He talks about the guy who's digging for gold, the miner who's digging for gold, and he says, you know what? I've had enough. This sucks. I'm no longer going. You know what? F it. Whatever. Sell all my equipment at a loss. Let's get out of here. I'm done with this. I'm done working with this. And some random, who's not even a miner, hires a prospector, a surveyor, to come in there, and the surveyor says, dude, he stopped 10 feet from the gold. And so homie bought up all the equipment, pennies on the dollar, went in there and became a millionaire. So maybe we just need to keep going. We just need to keep a little bit longer. I think they can do it. They can bridge the gap. That's what this whole discussion is about. It's there to be done because we do it. We do it in the Champions League. We play without fear. Look at Inter at San Siro. Look at home versus United. No one would bat an eyelid if we got spanked at San Siro when this was coming. It's very interesting, the game versus Inter, because the way we played showed that there was no pressure. There was no pressure. If we got spanked at Inter, that was fine because we'd probably still finish top 2 of the Champions League. We have Kairat on Wednesday, right? So that's why it's so weird that we played with such freedom and verve and passion versus Inter, and then couldn't find it. We're just nervy. We're nervous when one thing went wrong. One mistake at Manchester United versus Manchester United, and it just crumbled. It just crumbled into nothing. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need a new shovel and an axe pick. Although Inter did play with all the pressure because Inter are a fantastic team. I thought that Marcus Thuram played really well. His hold-up play was decent, but Mosquera, baby. Mosquera was fantastic. Fantastic. But that's the point. Both teams played with freedom, and it was a fantastic game. And we were able to demolish them. We were able to show our quality. You know what I mean? And so, back to Arteta, we are definitely, Charles, you're right. We're definitely heavily risk averse. Some of us, we don't want to believe in our capabilities want us to take shots outside the box. We want to follow the rule book. That's just it. That's 100%. It's rigid, right? The caution gives us a rigidity that makes us try to fit into the structure, into the triangles that we've drawn on the tactics board where, Timber does the underlap, Odegaard plays it to Saka, and Saka the triangle that, that we're too kind of stuck, like you say, in those rule books. And I think that's really hindering Odegaard. It's hindering Saka. You can tell because when Saka decides near the end of games when we need someone to step up and he wants to take it on himself, people have been calling him selfish. He's been trying too much. People have been saying he's been trying to do too much, trying to work too hard, trying to, one too many touches. Maybe he should look for the pass. Maybe he, you know what I'm saying? It's because when we try to go outside, he's trying to get outside of that rule book, but sometimes it's too little, too late. And I heard something about, someone's analysis. I can't remember. It might have been Roy Jennings I was listening to about how when we made a 4-man sub all at once, and Odegaard included, we just threw out everything, tried to change philosophies mid-game, and that was desperation. And yeah, it kind of felt desperate. It kind of felt a little desperate, and so it's Arteta's job to take all of that on himself and stand between the fans and the players, absorb it all. Managers, it's not just about coaching. It's not just about the tactics and the structure. They also have to regulate emotion. I think that's why, one of the most underrated things about Sir Alex Ferguson that nobody really, I'm sure people do talk about it, is that he was also a very good man manager. He was able to get people to run through big walls for him. You don't rebuild a team twice into legends without being able to get people to run for you, just commanded respect, and so that's managers don't necessarily, it's not just about coaching. It's about regulating emotion. It's about man management as well. If the manager is like, he tightens up after setbacks, the team is going to tighten up. But when the manager shows belief, the team is able to show that belief as well. Mentality is caught. It's not taught. Jake, seriously, United have done irreparable damage, I feel. Not only title race is wide open, they've obliterated our home image and scoring 3 goals versus us in 780 plus days shown others what to do. I don't think they've done irreparable damage. I think that, and I don't think they've shown others what to do either. The blueprint was already there. We have a lot of bandages to stick on from leaking more. Yeah, I hear that. But I think, once again, we just lost our heads. Too many nervy, just clearing it instead of trying to bring it down. I've seen it before. A good example of it was last season, Liverpool at home, when Gabriel goes out injured. Raya and Saliba didn't trust Jakub Kivior, who came in to deputize. And while we were playing through them at the time, and we were up 2-1, we decided to stop playing through Liverpool, and we kicked it long, and then stopped winning second balls and let them pile on the pressure, and that's how they got that 2-2 draw. And so it's all here. For me, this is the last thing. This is the last thing we need to get over the line. And so how does he do it? How does Arteta foster this freedom when the failure, like it did versus Manchester United, really, really matters? Now, first, I think he needs to like redefine it. Redefine the failure. Just because we lost to Manchester United doesn't mean we've lost the title. You know, failure it doesn't. It's not a failure to play, not to lose. That's how we need to kind of look at it. But we also shouldn't be passive. We need to, instead of the fans and the manager getting on to being passive, we should probably, instead of getting on to the mistakes we make, like Zubimendi's mistake, or, instead of getting on to those kinds of things, we need to get more angry at the passivity, at the side-to-side passing, at the lack of risk. That's what we need to be more, more angry about. Sometimes people are going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen, and that's acceptable. But when you make mistakes because you're afraid, the mistakes made out of fear, that right there is where we got to draw a line. And I think, thirdly, we need to choose moments. Arteta needs to choose the moments and not the minutes, because we don't necessarily manage games for 90 minutes. Champions don't manage games for 90 minutes. They manage windows, right? Goals change games, right? The window in a game where one team who's been up against it, gets a goal line clearance and then goes down the other end and scores, and then the other team crumbles and the momentum just completely changes. Look at the Chelsea Palace game at the weekend. That game was a microcosm of Palace's last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where the season just kind of imploding. Everything was going fine. They were playing just fine. And then they hit the panic button and it all went to shit. And they ended up losing 3-1. We can't necessarily, we have to manage those windows. We have to, make sure that when we have a window where we're on top, we decimate a team and then it's 3-0 and you can't get back in it. That's what I'm talking about, managing windows. Nice word, redefine failures. Stop out of the box shots, minimize errors. Even if we do that, fair enough, sometimes it'll happen. Even if we tried to better, but then how to outscore, how to change that. Nice word, redefine failure. Stop out of the box shots. Yes. Minimize errors. Yes. Even if we do that, sometimes they will happen, but even if you try to be better, but then how to outscore and how to change that. Yeah, I think it's all, like I say, this was a little bit confusing to me, but yeah, I agree that these things are a part of what would be redefining as things that we don't want to do. We definitely, do need to do, stopping out of the box shots, etc. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And I think the biggest thing Mikel Arteta needs to do is he needs to be the model of the belief that we're all wanting to do, that we're all wanting to have. We need to be able to believe in Arteta like the players do. And that's one thing I think he has done. The players will never be braver than he is. They'll never be, because he's got them set into their structure. We have to admit, Arteta has rebuilt our team from the dumps, the absolute low dumps that Emery left us in. But now he has to regulate Arsenal's emotion. Champions they're not fearless. It's not necessarily no fear. They're protected. When Arteta can get over that psychological line, when he can say, you know what, I'm going to take it all in and I'm going to keep it in, and I'm just going to show we are the greatest there is, we are the best, and we are going to win everything because we're going to go for it. We're going to go for everything. That's how you bridge the gap. Just believe himself. I think he's got to find that belief himself, that even with the fear of getting hit the other way, it's worth dying to truly live. It's worth getting smacked to try and go smack them. It's worth every bit of fear that he has to deal with. It's worth dealing with it to lift it at the end of the season. If he just embraces that and embodies that, the team will follow. The team will absolutely follow. Charles says, what I mean is we can correct our failures, but outscore the opposition. Creating enough chances can only overcompensate those errors, even if they happen. But to do that, we rip up the rule book. It's not necessarily about ripping up the rule book. It's about applying the Champions League rule book to the Premier League. In that intergame, the intergame is a perfect example. The Inter Milan game is a perfect example because we weren't afraid of them. You know why we weren't afraid of them? There was no pressure. We didn't have to win that game. We didn't have to do anything we did in that game. And look how good we were. But every time we come around to the Premier League, it's must win. It's the message from the fans is we have to win. We have to win, have to win, have to win. And I think that the manager needs to, I don't think he's going to be able to keep that feeling and the fan kind of, in this day and age of social media and YouTube and all this, I don't think the players are going to be able to not hear it and not, take that on. I think Arteta needs to take it on himself. Tell them to ignore all of that and bring it all in on himself. And embody the fact that none of that matters, that we are going to go and win this league. We are going to go and win the Champions League because we're going to go for it. It's not about ripping the rule book up. Because Arteta's best tactical characteristic that he has instilled in this team is how well we press. When you look at other teams and you see, especially even Man United, we were able to play through their press a couple of times in the game, especially in that first 30 minutes, because they only pressed with two people. They were only pressing with Bruno and Mbeumo. And so the very common thing that happens when Declan Rice comes back, he makes the run across the top of the box. Raya plays it to him, and then he just one-times it over to Saliba, because if Dorgu wasn't on Saliba, that pass was on all day. And opposite side, it's on all day. And so if you don't press as a team, you can just play through it really well. But Arteta's got us pressing as a team really, really, really well. That's our best. It's what, in my mind, that's what he thinks our best attribute is. Yeah? And so when we press the hell out of teams, we destroy teams. Because we create the chances. We win the ball higher up, and we play with such speed, like we did versus Inter. The way Eze was playing the risky passes, just give Odegaard the license to play the risky pass. We've seen him. He can pick it out. It's not like he can't do it. It's that he's not. It's that Arteta is not telling him to. Charles says, yeah, it's an example. We choose to ignore chances that Thuram and company had early on. That's the point. If we break the chains, we can't hold fort at the other all the time. That's the fear. That's the fear, is what it is. He doesn't want to play basketball. But sometimes you just have to hold the fear in and go for it. It's crunch time. We're at the end. We're there. It's crunch time. There is no, I always say, people talk about the 10 games is the run-in. The Premier League title race starts day one. Day one. When we pushed Man City to the last day of the season, a couple of seasons ago, I remember João Palhinha scoring against us in the third game of the season at home to Fulham on a horrendously defended corner kick. That if we would have defended that corner kick, we would have won the league. We would have won the league if we defended that one corner kick in the third game of the season. So the Premier League title race has every game. And so now that have put ourselves in such a good position with 15 games to go, every game has this weight on it, and Arteta needs to bring it in and hold on to that weight for the team and give the team to the freedom to play like they can. The freedom to maybe sometimes figure some things out on the field themselves and not have us so rigidly set that they're scared to, if they make a risky pass and give the ball away, they're going to get benched. You know, it's like they can feel his fear. They can feel, especially when what it seems to me is that he doesn't want to play as a left wing just because he didn't mark up Matty Cash. But it's a fear thing. He's afraid that Eze is not going to track back and is going to leave the area that we leave exposed anyway, because our left backs, when it's Calafiori at least, marauds into the middle. And so he doesn't want to play Eze in tandem with Calafiori, of course, because Eze's not going to work back. And this is his fear. And Calafiori is going to be over here anyway. And so Gabriel is going to get exposed by himself. That's the fear if he plays as a left wing. That's what it seems like to me. But I think sometimes the fear kind of gives off this vibe of, I don't trust you to do that. I don't trust Eze to do what he knows he should do. He's a professional footballer. He knows when he knew immediately. He knew the second it happened that he was having a shocker versus Aston Villa in Birmingham. He knew it. Obviously, he didn't know he was going to get punished for 7 games after that, but he knew. He's a professional player. He knew that he had messed that up. That was on him. And so I think when Arteta brings in all of this energy, he can give the players the freedom that we have in the Champions League that'll help us win the Premier League. That is ingrained, to be honest. That is his chosen way to get our first in 22 years. It will not happen without adversity. Yeah. As much as I wanted it to, as much as in the last couple of weeks I've said, please, please, please let us run away with this league. My assumption earlier on that I put forth was that there's no way, even the football gods, there's no, whatever you want to call it, is going to let us just run away with this league. It was never going to be Liverpool and COVID. It just wasn't. No matter how poor Man City are, no matter how poor Liverpool are, no matter how much you don't think Unai Emery can win a title, no matter what the rest of the league is doing, it was never going to be easy. It just never was. And that scares us. But like I said, Arteta needs to take all of that on and just embody courage. Just be as brave as possible. And the way to do that is to just damn the torpedoes, man. Unleash the handbrakes. Trust Gabriel and Saliba in transition defense. One suggestion, and this is why I also think that he doesn't want to play Eze and Odegaard in tandem in the middle of the park, is because he doesn't want to play a single defensive midfielder. He's just petrified to play two more attacking players with one defensive player in the center of the park. But I think if you were brave, embodied the courage that I think he needs to, and put Eze and Odegaard and Rice in the middle together, maybe give Zubi a rest, I think we could do good. I think we could absolutely dominate Leeds away. They're going to be low block City, low block FC, of course. I'm not worried about Kairat. Kairat, just play the kids. That's all that matters. At Leeds, Eze and Odegaard can combine because Eze likes the small spaces. Odegaard can play in the small spaces. Saka can play in the small spaces. Give it a try. You know what? I could call it a worldie. It happens. It's football. All those objectives, but we cannot add these objectives because opposition is Manchester United. That's the thing. I think Manchester United embodies this mental block that Mikel Arteta has more than any other team. I think he does more than any other team because since he's come in, he's known that Manchester United's best attribute is transitions, is counterattacking football. Because their best player has been Bruno Fernandes for time. And he is best, with the freedom he now has, in counterattacking, transition, 1-2 touch type stuff. He was doing it all over the park versus us. Because he had the freedom. And I think if Arteta gives us the freedom, to press the hell out of everyone for the rest of the season, we won't lose another game. Because I think the best defenders in the world and one of the best center midfielders in the world, you're scared to let them handle the transition defense? Nah, we can't be. We can't be. So Arteta needs to embody courage. He needs to embody bravery and let us go for it. And let us just go for it. I personally think that's the only way we're going to win the league. I personally think that's the only way we're going to bridge the gap. So thanks, people, for being here. Of course, that's been another video here on the Cup Chasers. Let me know what you think about Arteta and his fear, his courage here in comments down below. Of course, smash up the likes. It really does help the channel. Subscribe if you're new. I certainly appreciate you being here. And of course, you will see me next time.